Frank Morales up here. Well, I may as well just say anger management specialist. I mean, you've been teaching it for how long now?
A little bit over 10 years.
Over 10 years, so I can definitely say specialist. You've met a lot of people, haven't you?
I've met a few.
You've seen how over the past 10 years, society as a whole has changed.
It's changed a great deal. We're in an age where we see a lot of different things happen. A lot of people think that there's more angry events now, and we're in an age now where a lot of questions have come to mind. A lot of negative thinking. I think a big word that's changed, and you see it in the paper a lot even this past week, is the word civility.
Civility.
Yes, and in fact, if you saw that came up in Congress, where they say that we need to practice that a little bit more, you know, be more courteous in our speech and things, because we're saying that because we have problems with that, a lot of actions have occurred, and in fact, you know, a lot of...
Kind of like provoking?
Provoking speeches that sometimes bring others to actions of violence or negative behavior. But, you know, our society right now, we look for negative things to happen. We're looking, when you start talking, we start looking for the negative thinking. We look to see what negative things we can find for your speeches. Unfortunately, our governor gave in his inauguration speech, he gave a speech, and he was at a Christian church, and he was trying to, I think, bond with the people in that church, and people found that he excluded the group, and the first thing they did was to make sure that they said he was attacking by excluding the group, and that's all they did was look at that. And so even in his speech where he was trying to bring together people before he went in there, all they can talk about is what he didn't do in there. And so here's a man that all throughout his campaign and afterwards was trying to do something, and him, by saying what he said, we construed it, of course, in a negative way, and here he is starting out his whole governorship in that way, and that's how he's going to be remembered.
By having to apologize.
Right.
So first off...
Yes, and it was, you know, of course, it went across nationally. It's across, you look on the internet, it's on every single one of the pages reported by them, and that's how he's being construed now. I mean, look at the things that happened in Tucson, and here's a person that you saw him tied to Sarah Palin, because on her Facebook page, she had targets for certain people. And of course, immediately we say, well, that's why it happened.
We have to blame someone.
Yeah, because that's what we like to do. We like to bash and blame. Well, that's what civility is all about. We're saying that we're just hyping up a lot of people. Well, that's it. Some of us, we need to be, you know, responsible for our speech, but that's what free speech is all about. You know, is the ability to say things. But not all of us review the information in the same way. I can remember it was about 3 years ago, I was in this certain gun store in Huntsville that shall remain nameless, but it's a place that you go to browse at lunch. A lot of people, you know, and I'm going to tell you, I don't have anything against guns at all. I'm an NRA member. I don't mind saying that, Jamie Cooper.
We don't mind people having guns either.
No, I don't mind at all. I don't know how Jamie Cooper is. He might be a liberal for all I know.
He just doesn't use one. He just doesn't shoot a gun.
Yeah, he might be. I don't know. You know, but I was in there. Yeah, yeah. But I was in there, you know, browsing lunch like several other people. Yeah. And a certain person had become president. And so everybody's in there looking at guns, buying guns. But there was a guy that was in there, and he was just walking around, and he had a beard, overalls, and stuff, and he kept saying, ain't no one gonna take my guns away from me. You know, and he just kept walking around, and he kept saying it louder and louder. And mind you, everybody in there is pretty much of the same opinion that no one's gonna take their guns away from them. You wouldn't be in that store if you didn't have that feeling. But he kept walking around saying that louder and louder. And pretty soon, everybody in that store started looking at this guy.
Because he seemed angry, didn't he?
He seemed very angry. And plus, every employee at that store is armed, and half the people in the store are armed too, you know, walking around. And pretty soon, someone turned around and said, hey, listen, buddy, we don't need to hear that kind of talk in here. Even though they agree with his opinion, he was still over the edge with it.
You could just sense it. You know,
Right.
and it's a shame, every time there's a situation somewhere or, a life is taken or there's a shooting, everyone's like coming out saying, oh, there were so many signs, you knew this, you knew that. But you really, just because you heard that man right there and you're thinking, boy, he could go off the deep end someday, you really
Right.
can't do anything at that point.
No. And see, the thing is that there are people that can hear that information, like he heard the information that possibly the new president was wanted gun control and was going to take things away. What it is you hear an opinion and you take it as fact, and this is what happens a lot of times, is people hear opinions and they start stating it as fact. And that's what happens a lot in our society, is we get opinions confused with facts. This leads to a lot of anger, is people start quoting these things. And here is a guy that he couldn't process that information the same as other people. And he started quoting opinions as fact.
Like it was going to happen.
Right, it's happening. And he gets angry, and people start then taking things, putting it into this little mind bag, and you hear them. They're at the store. They might say, oh, well, this didn't come in today, and they start blaming, saying, well, that's because the new president, that's because this group did this. And they get angrier and angrier and angrier, and they assess blame to this one group or this one ever individual or whatever, and pretty soon they get angrier and angrier and angrier over any little thing. Everything reaches the same level of importance. Like our shooter in Tucson, if you think about it, if you listen to the stories of the other people, he was angry almost over anything after that. He assessed that same blame to any single thing that happened. This was what was responsible for it. And it wasn't the case. So he rambled on about everything. And that's how things happen in our life, is that people take information and make it so important to them.
Until they explode, what escalates that far.
Right.
What do you think, because all of us know someone who's always angry or negative, or, we all know a person like that, maybe several.
Yes.
How do you suggest you approach that person, or do you suggest something? Because you can't say, hey, dude, you need anger management. You can, but you're probably going to get into an argument.
Well, here's one of the signs that you can always tell with that, is there's kind of 4 categories to looking at things in your life. There are things that are very important and they're controllable to you. Then there are things that are very important in life and they are uncontrollable to you, such as things like you can't control a tornado or anything like that. Then there are things that are unimportant but they're controllable. And finally, there are things that are unimportant and uncontrollable. The very angry person puts everything in that top line. Everything is important and controllable. So everything is assigned the top priority. I don't care if there is lint on the floor. They give it the same value system, so they make everything very dramatic, very angry. And you watch these people, so when you see someone say, oh, well, it snowed outside, or, oh, there's some trash in the flew into my driveway, and they get the same amount of anger with it, that's a person you say, well, listen, how important really was that? Can we just do this? And you see them flying out of control. That's a person that you just say, well, this is a person right there that's going to need some help. And you say, listen, that wasn't that important. Here, let me help you with this. But that person you already know is going to need some help.
And if you're a parent and you're seeing your children respond this way to certain things, that's a prime example for you to be able to sit them down and say, you have to at least point it out to their attention and hopefully do something. Something that you're doing is, a lot of times you can't get to one of your classes on a Tuesday, Thursday night, whatever it shall be, but because they have kids, they're getting off from work, so it's just not time related, but you're starting something new.
Yes. What we did now is we, for the first time, are offering an 8-hour anger management course. It's a very intensive course. It's going to be offered on a Saturday. And the reason we're doing it is because we're only offering it to, at the max, 6 people at a time.
Okay.
It's going to be because we're going to go through a lot of different things, but it's meant for you to go in there. It's like one portion of it is dealing with self-awareness. You're dealing with self-control. You're dealing with how you're looked at by others. You're looking at your relationship management. Then you're going to deal with how you look at how you deal with in relationships themselves. We're looking at how, what pushes your buttons. We're looking at how all the things involved in life with things. What is anger to you? And it's going to take 8 hours for you to really look at all the type of situations in life that you're going to do with that. And you can't do that with a bunch of people doing that.
Right, because, you know, and I want to say, if you have if it's 8 hours that you're in one of your classes, I assure you it's not boring. And by having,
no, it won't be boring.
I promise you it won't be boring. I guarantee it. But when you're in there with those 6 people and everyone's talking, maybe I'm explaining what my problem is, and you get a good perspective because somebody else is in the group and they say, hey, wait a minute, and they get to input and you get to talk to everybody and share your views, and that's where you're pinpointing, hey, this is what you didn't do right there. Yes, Mr. Cooper.
You know, you're going to be doing that 8-hour that 8-hour class that you're talking about.
Yes.
You know what would be a better idea?
What would that be?
Come in our studio, do a 8, looking down this room. I know some people that can sign up.
What I just
and then you do it in here, and I could videotape the whole thing and then play it back and let people know how angry people are.
You're a couple steps behind because I've already talked to him.
Why can't we do that, Frank?
Mr. Cooper.
We can blur out. We can blur out everybody's face.
Tell him it's not about him.
I guess you would like to be the star of it?
Well, I don't mind. I don't have to blur my face out.
Of course. We'll think about it.
Hey, let me tell you something. If you got an anger problem, and I know a lot of, if you're getting ready to get divorced or whatever, you found out, you know, this, that about your other half or whatever, you got a problem with somebody at work, y'all need to go see Frank Morales. I personally guarantee it. He'll make your life better and entertain you at the same time.
Wow, Frank.
I appreciate that.
was that a good thing?
Well, that I'm trying to cut y'all off because I got to go to a break because we're going to hear more singing in just a moment. Here, watching Cooper Company Live. You through? You are
Yes,
now.
we are.
On a Friday morning edition of Cooper Company Live, y'all hang on.